English is not my first language, but the audacity of this woman and her loudmouth new husband makes for a good read. My uncle's revenge and how he stripped his wife of everything. From status, children, family dog, and money. Here it goes. So my uncle and his wife had a very good relationship. They did everything together. She was a good mother but was dependent on my uncle for money. He earned while she stayed at home **king another man and looking after the kids, 6 and 12. How nice, right? A really lovely and caring wife. For more context, my other uncle had died, so of course my uncle was mourning for a few months. He wanted love and to be cuddled and not to have sex. Well, his wife didn't care. She would give him a kiss and a quick hug, then carry on doing what she was doing, such as cooking and cleaning. We would ask him how is it that she seems so distant, and his reply was that everyone deals with grief a certain way. Turns out her grieving process included cheating with another man, a family friend of all things. My uncle's brother had died, and during this time they had many friends visit them at their house, especially from a family friend they had known forever, who would visit with his child so that the children could play while the grown-ups talked to each other. My uncle didn't think anything of it or the frequency of which this man would visit, especially when it was during the day. He thought it was a drop off his son kind of thing, so the children could play. That was until his little boy, my cousin, drew a picture he wanted to show to Daddy. My uncle, my little cousin, said it was a secret, and Mommy said, family friend, and her were playing a new game that only they could play. That already made my uncle suspicious, but never did he think his wife would ever cheat on him, especially since he was still in mourning. In fact, we were all shocked. This woman is so prim and proper, to a T, with a clean house, good mannerisms, fine clothes, and upturned nose. His son proceeds to take out a crumpled piece of paper, which he had hidden from under his bed, and shows it to my uncle, saying he went to fetch it from the bin after his mommy threw it away. It was a drawing. He has explained that Mommy had told him not to draw her and the family friend again, 'cause it's a private game that nobody can know about. However, my uncle's son, feeling hurt, went to retrieve his drawing and thought perhaps Daddy might like to see it and give him applause, 'cause he thinks that he can draw so nicely and Daddy would like to see. It turns out after some explanation that it was a drawing of family friend sticking his pee-pee next to Mommy's wee-wee. My uncle took pictures of the drawing while shitting himself and recording everything his son said about what he drew. He asked things like when and where Mommy was playing these games. Turns out she did it when she thought the kids were busy during the day outside playing, and that she basically had sex around the whole house while locking the doors and leaving the kids without supervision for a few minutes. He also found out that the older kids made their own game of observing the adults having sex and would listen or watch the adults doing their thing through doors and curtains from outside, while the young son, who drew the picture, would make noises to pretend to be busy playing outside so as not to alert the adults. The children would essentially take turns to see what family friend, my uncle's wife, were doing out of curiosity. This coming from the most self-important, prim and proper woman you'd ever meet. Do you know what her response was to my uncle when he asked her why, after finding out that they were together in his house with the children around, that he paid for, as her lazy ass wanted to stay at home? She said, and I kid you not, you wouldn't give me what I needed, sex, and kept denying me, so I went to look for it somewhere else, and something along the lines of, I had a right to do it, since you weren't giving me what I needed or caring about me, loving me, etc. Can you believe it? Not only did the kids see that nonsense, not only did she neglect them for selfish reasons and lock them outside for a few minutes, not only did she cheat as he was mourning for his brother, she had the sheer audacity to claim it was because of him, and she as a wife has sexual and fulfillment needs, that needing to feel wanted and loved was important for a woman like her. Move on a few months, they get divorced. They share custody of the dog/children, while she gets married to the guy she cheated on him with. On top of that, the guy, who was a family friend, also had the audacity to speak up and say that what she did was right, and that my uncle should have taken care of her. etc. Imagine thinking you know, and have a say in someone else's marriage, and help to break it up. That it's fine to do. Do you know what my uncle did to his wife? He ruined her for cheating and leaving him to marry someone else, the family friend, as well as make his life hell. He actually messed up both their lives and got full custody of his children. And yes, it was amazingly rewarding, even for us. She left my uncle for someone else. He being who he was tried letting it go. He tried to forgive her, went to church, prayed for her to have a good life, never spoke bad about her, and so on. Then one day she started talking to him about having the kids stay over at her house. This continued to her texting messages about how she missed him. He finally caught a wake up and caught on to what she wanted. She wanted to be with him, perhaps cheat with him on her new husband, and kept sending him messages about how she missed him. Thus he used her feelings and urges to manipulate her into sending tons of backed-up sexts and videos to him by leading her on, which he finally then sent to her new husband. This was while they were trying for a baby with each other. But this stay-at-home wife would now learn her lesson. In fact, they both would. It taught them both a lesson. She will always cheat. The family friend who defended her cheating and married her would learn what it's like to be in my uncle's position, since he liked to talk so much. She did it to her husband, now does it to him, karma, 'cause people informed me that I had spelled it as Kalma. Thanks for the notes and various entertaining arguments regarding my spelling. Serves you right for helping her cheat and defending her. Let's see what you say now, you on the other side of the story. Don't be a lazy stay-at-home mom without a job at SIF to fall back on. Then when the new husband left my aunt, she couldn't take care of the children, and the laws in my country are funny, and she carelessly signed a prenuptial. She was left out on the street, not being able to care for her children. She had no experience and no fine clothing or jewelry anymore to act like a proper prom and proper asterisk, as if she has class 'cause she has someone else's money. So he ended up with full custody of the dog and his children. Win-win for everyone. Except on the cheating and the loudmouth husband. Not so nice when the shoe is in the other foot, friend. Tuliter. Uncle gets cheated on as he was mooring and didn't want to have sex. Aunt and family friend had sex. Uncle got divorced. Aunt got remarried to this man who she ended up trying to cheat on with my uncle. My uncle kept proof, showed it to the same loudmouth man who had defended my aunt. They got divorced. Aunt was left without a house or money, and my uncle got full custody of the dog and his children. She never got that. Class wasn't what you had, but how you behaved. She thought class was having an iPhone, dressing well, and having tidy house while thinking lower of other working people, when she didn't work for her money. I know poor people who basically have nothing, who have more class than she ever will, as they know how to behave, treat, help others. Edit. My uncle is rich, smart enough to use already rich family money to make him richer. The family friend was just as rich, so she clearly has a type. It's called wealthy. My uncle was clever before getting married, the same for this guy. When she got married to this guy after divorcing him, she lost the money she was entitled to every month, as well as the monthly child care money when she lost her children. What money she was able to get from my uncle she spent quickly. I am talking 5-star hotels and $1,000 cruises, clothes with her new husband. Her honeymoon and wedding alone cost her almost $1 million for her half of the event, which lasted like 2 months, including places around Dubai, shopping trips, and the Mediterranean. Not to mention being a good mommy, she spoiled her kids crazy, so they would love her and new dad, as well, not that he tried much for her children. She didn't take care of what money she was spending, or what the prenup entailed, thinking the new husband would treat her fairly like my uncle. She was literally left on the street after being kicked out. She begged and pleaded for shelter, as well as to see her children. I mean, she was a decent mother besides the children seeing you have sex part. But eventually that stopped when she disappeared to who knows where.
Next story.
So anyway, it is the early 90s, and I was in my 20s, working as an electrician with my best friend. We were known as the Hawkeye, me, and Trapper / Honeycutt. Old MASH reference. team of our crew, and we kept everyone on the job site laughing and in good spirits, even in the worst of times. We were working new construction of an elementary school and had been on site since the very beginning. We were 2 weeks away from punch-out. That is where construction is complete and inspections are done looking for any flaws or corrections that need to be made. Anyway, the superintendent over the whole construction site was a major jackhole and had been since day one. He was new and wanting to make a name for himself. It was his first time running a job, and he made several mistakes and always blamed others. Remember me mentioning worst of times. He constantly cut corners to save on cost, which would turn around and bite him later on. He had gotten several good hands fired. He would run good contractors off of the job and bring in his friends to replace them. The drywallers and painters were a couple of examples, and I had heard that he had half of the plumbers run off and replaced with his crew as well. He was a total jackhole to us electricians as well, wanting us to work overtime, but not willing to pay it. He was really wanting to keep us behind so that he could charge the company fines. Our small company finally brought in a couple of extra hands, which pissed him off even more because we were starting to catch up. By the time Christmas rolled around, we were ahead of everyone else, and as mentioned, the job was nearing punch-out status. 2 weeks before Christmas, my friend's car, since I was his roommate, I carpooled with him as I didn't have my own transportation, lost its rear end, and we, my best friend and I, missed 2 days of work repairing it. The jackhole superintendent saw this as an opportunity and told our job foreman to have us fired, if not run us off the job site. He tried to kick us off property himself, but since he had no legal means, tried to have our job foreman run us off, citing we were unsafe and a distraction keeping others from getting any work done. His argument was dismissed since, as I mentioned, we were ahead of everyone else. It was the day before Christmas Eve, our last day before we would be off for the holiday. He knew our supervisor, who was visiting that day, was deathly afraid of snakes. Earlier that day, a small rattlesnake had been found hibernating beneath a porta-john that had been moved and killed. Gotta love Texas. The jackhole superintendent had brought a cooler full of beer for his crew for when the day ended. Well, our supervisor made his rounds, inspecting our work and talking to our foreman, and since we were his last stop, was ready to leave and start his holiday. The superintendent told him to have a beer and pointed out the cooler. Our supervisor opened the lid to the cooler and had a heart attack. Literally, the dead snake was inside. When the EMTs finally cleared him, the supervisor was telling him that he saw me and my friend at the cooler earlier that day and blamed us. Of course, we had been under the foreman's nose all day, in which half of it was with the supervisor, and our supervisor was aware to the jackhole's tricks, so he did not give in to the demands of us being fired. Now for the nuclear revenge. My friend and I did not take kindly to our supervisor being harmed, nor to the blame being pinned on us. Do to us what you will, but do not harm those in whom we have respect. Like I said, it was the last day of work before the Christmas holiday. We had Christmas Eve and Christmas off. After work, my friend and I drove to a bait shop and picked up a gallon of Catfish Charlie. For those who don't know, catfish are attracted to really foul odors, and Catfish Charlie was one of the stinkiest baits used for fishing for catfish. I mean, one whiff will turn your stomach, and you will turn green. A cast iron stomach is what's need not to just lose your lunch. We drove back to the school and around back to where the air handler unit was. For those who don't know, the air handler is the main environmental unit of commercial buildings, AC/heating. We opened up the main intake duct and dumped the whole bucket of the Catfish Charlie and closed the duct back up. For good measure, we had also added about 1.5 pints of water and stirred into a nice thinner paste so that it would not quickly dry out. I did learn that, even though long-time smokers, I could hold my breath a full 1.5 minutes, and my friend 2 minutes, probably due to him being ex-military. Neither of us could see for about 10 minutes due to the tears, and it was a miracle we didn't lose the contents of our stomachs. Even in Texas, winters can get cold, including on the coast, and this was a particularly cold winter, staying in the 20s and teens. It even snowed on Christmas, not enough to write home about, which maybe happens once every 10 to 15 years. Remember, this was Wednesday, and like I said, we had Christmas Eve and Christmas off, and then the weekend. 4 full days for that stink bait to stew in the running heating system. Come to find out later, the jackhole superintendent and his cronies had forgotten to lower the main thermostat before leaving for the long winter holiday weekend. The thermostat is normally lowered to 50 F when closed during cold weather and raised to 82 F when closed during warmer. Yeah, it was left at 75 F that whole weekend. It's Monday, and my friend and I pulled up to quite the scene that morning. Martians on all fours seemed to be littering the grounds of the school, projectile vomiting spewed everywhere. There was an ambulance and 3 fire trucks on the scene with firemen in full rubbers, including respirators, running around everywhere. All of the doors and the windows of the school were open with giant fans venting the buildings. The air was putrid, and we turned green upon exiting the vehicle. Oh, holy phew, was all I could say. What the hell happened here? Our boss was sitting on the hood of his car next to ours, his breakfast artfully painted the ground. The jackhole superintendent and a couple of his guys were in the back of the ambulance on oxygen, as they had taken the full brunt upon opening the building. Okay, let's tally the damage. The smell had permeated and I mean EVERYT. The school, besides cafeteria, was fully carpeted. The drop ceilings were of the fiberglass type, as well as the insulation so they absorbed the smell. The walls that weren't cinder block were papered and not painted, since the inner ductwork was the insulated type on the inside. All of that had to be replaced as well. Needless to say, tens of millions of dollars in damage. Also, a fence had to be erected to prevent such a thing from ever occurring again. Come to find out, the superintendent had skimped on the insurance and pocketed the money, so needless to say, it fell to his company to cover all of the costs. All of his underhanded dealings came to light in the end as well. Needless to say, he lost his job and was arrested, losing his contractor's license forever. Our boss never said anything, but I am thinking, due to the way he always grinned at us after that day, that he had his suspicions that it was us. But he never turned us in and did put in for us a big raise, since the smell didn't permeate any of our stuff and our jobs were complete anyway. The plumbers, electricians, and pipe fitters were spared from ever having to enter that mess. Yeah, nearly 30 years. I guess the statutes of limitations are well up, so I can safely tell the story. I want to admit that I do feel ashamed for doing it. Being young and dumb, and all is a great excuse, but a good contractor service went bankrupt and a lot of jobs were lost in the end. And from what I hear, the school still has a foul odor, even today. Well, about 18 years ago from what I heard. Yeah, we expected to stink up the place, but did not expect such a result. I just want to note from a question in the comments. During that time, in the contractor/construction field, was a major boom. One could quit or lose their job and be working at another company within the hour and generally earning more money. Also brought to my attention in comments. True, EMTs cannot clear someone from a heart attack. I should have worded it better. The EMTs did stabilize my supervisor. He refused to go to the hospital wanting to be home for Christmas. Since the EMTs could not force him when they got his vitals stabilized, they left. A week later, an EKG did confirm the heart attack. He was admitted to the hospital for double bypass surgery. Okay, hopefully last edit. A lot of people want to know if the school still stinks today. I called my father since he lives down there and I'm no longer in the area. I learned that my friend lied to me 18 years ago when he said it still did. My brother said that 5 years after the incident, after many complaints, it was torn down and rebuilt.